Blessings, my people. Welcome back to the Daily Scoop. If you thought the Skillibeng and Massacre conversation was already interesting, things just became even more complicated because another name has entered the discussion, which is Intence. And Intence has released a record called Gun Mode. No, this is not simply a random song appearing at the wrong time. The conversation becomes interesting because Skillibeng had previously mentioned Intence in the wider lyrical exchange. So naturally, fans are asking, was Intence responding to Skillibeng? And if he is responding, what exactly is he saying? There are also references involving Massacre, Alkaline, and Vibes Cartel, which makes this record even more interesting. So today we are going to break down the situation. Let's start with the obvious. If another artist mentions your name in a lyrical exchange, you have every right to respond musically. That is the nature of dancehall. And Intence is not an artist who needs much introduction. He has developed a reputation for an intense lyrical style. His delivery is aggressive, his imagery can be dark, and his approach is not always designed to make everybody comfortable. So when Skillibeng names and Intence name became connected in the conversation, fans immediately became interested because now people are not just watching Skillibeng versus Massacre. They are wondering whether Intence is opening another front. The title alone tells you what type of energy Intence is bringing. The title is Gun Mode. The record carries the kind of aggressive language people expect from Intence, but behind the title, the important thing is the lyrical direction. Intence appears to address several names and issues connected to the current dancehall conversation, and that makes the record important because it does not feel like an isolated release. It feels connected to a larger discussion. The first question is whether this is genuinely a response to Skillibeng. Based on the sequence of events and the references being discussed by fans, many listeners believe it is. But again, we should separate interpretation from confirmed facts. An artist can mention another artist without necessarily declaring an official war. And sometimes lyrics are deliberately written with multiple meanings. That part of dancehall tradition. But if Skillibeng mentioned Intence first, then Intence responding would make perfect sense from a musical standpoint. No, here is where things become even more interesting. Intence also makes reference connected to Massacre, and fans have already been heavily discussing Massacre position in the Skillibeng situation. So, now you have a record that potentially connect multiple artists. Skillibeng, Intence, Massacre, and references involving Alkaline and Vibes Cartel. That's enough to send the dancehall internet into overdrive. One of the biggest points of discussion is the idea of tension between Massacre and Alkaline. This is something fans have debated for some time. Whenever two major artists have a history of competitive lyrics or perceived subliminal, the fans naturally start looking for signs. But we have to be careful. Fan theories are not automatically facts. An artist can mention another artist without confirming an active feud. So when Intence references that situation, the question becomes, is he simply acknowledging something that fans already discussed, or is he deliberately trying to bring attention to it? Only the artists themselves know exactly what they intended. Then there is Vibes Cartel. Cartel influence on dancehall is enormous, so whenever his name appears in a lyrical conversation, fans pay attention. Vibes Cartel and Intence earlier circumstances. Again, we should treat that as part of the lyrical narrative rather than presenting every lyrics as literal fact. Artists exaggerate, artists use metaphor, artists create characters. That is part of the musical competition. Alkaline name is also relevant because intense musical association and the broader dancehall landscape. Alkaline has built its own identity and fan base without needing to constantly participate in every online argument. That's something young artists can learn from. You don't have to respond to everything, you don't have to explain everything. Sometimes your music is enough. Another interesting question is the history between Skillibeng and Intence. There have been previous moments where fans believe the two artists were exchanging lyrical shots, but then Skillibeng's career continued developing. His music reached a larger audience, his international profile grew, and the conversation changed. So if Intence is now returning to that lyrical territory, fans are naturally going to ask, is this unfinished business or is Intence simply taking advantage of the moment? One thing cannot be denied. Skillibeng has become one of Jamaica's most recognizable younger dancehall artists. His rise has been significant, and with success comes criticism. Everybody wants to test the person who is doing well. That's how entertainment works. When an artist becomes popular, people want to know whether that artist can defend the position. That's why lyrical competition can sometimes be useful. It forces artists to sharpen their writing. This is where I would tell Skillibeng to think carefully. If Intence has released Gun Mode and the record is aimed at him, Skillibeng does not necessarily have to respond immediately. He needs to listen, study the lyrics, determine whether there is actually something worth answering, and then make the decision. Because responding emotionally is one thing, but responding strategically is another. Meanwhile, social media is doing what social media does. Fans are choosing sides. Some believe Skillibeng is ahead. Others believe Intence delivered the stronger records. Massacre supporters are watching. Alkaline supporters are watching. Vybz Kartel supporters are watching. And everybody has an opinion. That's the beauty of dancehall culture. People care, they debate, they argue over lyrics, they defend their favorite artists, but let's remember something. The artists are the ones making the music. Fans should not turn a musical rivalry into a personal hostility. A great clash is not about who can insult the other person the loudest. It is about creativity, wordplay, timing, delivery, originality, and production, and the ability to make people remember the song. The best clash records become part of the culture. Years later, people still remember them. That is the standard these artists should be chasing. If Intence really wants to establish himself in this conversation, this is his opportunity. But he does not need to become somebody else. He should remain intense, use his own voice, his own style, his own creativity, and let the music speak. Trying to imitate another artist's approach won't work. His strength is his individuality. Now we wait. Will Skillibeng answer? Will Massacre respond to any of these references? Will Alkaline get involved? Will Vybz Kartel even acknowledge the conversation? Or will everybody simply continue making their own music? That is the question. And honestly, I would not be surprised if social media creates another surprise before any of these artists even release another song. So my people, that is where we are right now. Intence has gone mode. Skillibeng is already at the center of the conversation. Massacre has been entered into the discussion. Alkaline remain part of the wider lyrical debate, and Vybz Kartel name continue to carry weight whenever dancehall competition is discussed. Now, tell me, do you think Intence delivered a serious response to Skillibeng? Should Skillibeng answer, or should he leave the record alone? Let me know in the comments. This is the Daily Scoop. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Big up yourself and bless up until the next one.